morning, guys. Today we are going to continue reading our book, Zipzer, the World's Greatest Underachiever. Yesterday we read chapter 7 and 8. In chapter 7, Hank got all the little ones, remember they were a party of 17 3-year-olds, settled down to watch the magic show. The adults couldn't do it, the other kids couldn't do it. Hank has shown that he's got real talent when it comes to working with little kids. He redirected them by make-believing they're bunnies, and they all hopped on the rug and followed him. It was very cute. During the magic show, unfortunately, because the kids are so young, they didn't understand the tricks. The one twin, they made like there were quarters coming out of his ears and quarters going in his head, and he got so upset thinking that there were things in his head. His mom had to take him outside to calm him down. Then his other brother had to pull a card from a card trick and was asked about like the 9 of diamonds, and he had no idea even what a 9 was. So needless to say, the magic show wasn't such a success, but they gave it their best shot. Then in chapter 8, after all the kids went to bed, the little kids went to bed and the other kids went home. They went in to watch the movie that Frankie wanted to watch about the mutant moth that ate Toledo. And remember when Hank taped it and the guide was going so fast, he thought it was number 36 for the channel, but he wasn't sure. And lo and behold, when they turned it on, it was a shopping network that was taped. And when they looked in the guide, in the paper guide, which Hank obviously didn't know about, the movie was really on 336. So he taped the wrong show, and he feels terrible. He feels terrible about himself. He thinks he's not smart, which he certainly is. And he's sorry that he let his best friend Frankie down. So now we're going to read chapter 9, and we're going to find out what happens. I've known Frankie Townsend since before we were born. Our moms always tell stories about how they used to walk in the park together when they were pregnant with us. We have been through lots of tough times together. When Frankie fell off the jungle gym in preschool, he didn't want to cry in front of everyone, so I stood in front of him so the others couldn't see him cry. When I peed in my pants in kindergarten just before the Thanksgiving pageant, Frankie gave me an extra pair of pants he kept in his cubby. They really are good friends. And he never told anybody about my accident. We've had a few fights, like the time we were camping and I ate the whole 3 Musketeer bars and didn't save him a bite. I tried to tell him I saved him the wrapping because it was made out of real silver, but he didn't go for it. Still, in all of our 10 years together, I had never seen Frankie as mad as he was that night. I tried to explain what happened, how the numbers on the television were going too fast for me. In the middle of my explanation, he picked up his sleeping bag and stormed out of the room and moved really angrily, probably stamping his feet. "Where are you going?" Ashley asked him. "I'd rather sleep with the twins than stay in here with him," he said. If I didn't know before how mad he was, that clinched it. Our friendship was over. I started to pace around the room. That means walk really fast. "He's never going to talk to me again," I said to Ashley. "Every time he sees me from now on, he's going to ignore me." I stopped pacing. "What happens if we're in the elevator together? We're just going to stand there in total silence, looking at the floor numbers change?" He was thinking too far ahead. "Hank," Ashley said, "would you like me to try to talk to Frankie?" "It won't do any good, Ash. I've just lost my best friend." "I'll be your best friend," Robert volunteered. Why was that not helping? "Hey, to get a slice and a Coke after school on Monday?" The clueless one went on. "Robert, do I have to draw you a map?" I said. "I can't have this conversation right now. And besides, you're not best friend material." They really are not nice to Robert. "I think he is," Emily said. "Fine," I said. "Then you and Robert can be best friends. Have fun counting iguana scales and think of me because my life as I know it is over." "Hank," Ashley said, "Frankie is just mad. He really, really, really wanted to see that movie." "Rub it in," I said. "Don't you think I know that?" Give him some time to get over it, Ashley said. He'll cool down. You'll say you're sorry. He'll say, that's okay, Zip, and everything will be back the way it was. What Ashley didn't understand was that to me, this was about more than taping a movie for Frankie. This was Frankie realizing that he couldn't trust me. Why would anyone want a best friend he couldn't trust? I always knew this was going to happen. That one day, Frankie would finally see I wasn't a friend worth having. He's so smart, he can do everything. And what can I do? What can I do? He really has no self-confidence. My brain was going a mile a minute, and I must have said something like, what can I do, out loud, because when I looked up, Emily was answering me. You can ask me to help you next time, she said. Could this be? My sister was offering first aid to me? Really, Hank, if there's something you can't do and I can, why not ask for help? They are really mature children. This was Emily Grace Zipzer talking. Easy for you to say, I answered her. Do you know how hard it is to live with Miss Perfect? It's embarrassing for me to admit that I need help from you when you're 17 months younger than me. I would look like a complete idiot. I'm not perfect, Hank, Emily said. She actually sounded nice. I think you are, Robert piped up. I think he surprised himself because as soon as he said it, his ears turned bright red. He was wearing two beads attached to his head. Robert, do you really think so? Emily said. She was doing that maple syrupy thing with her voice again. I'm going to find Frankie, I said. I'll come with you, said Ashley. Listen, Ash, I think I need to talk to Frankie myself. Ashley nodded. I knew she'd understand, even if it meant she had to stay alone in the den with Mr. Nerd and Miss Nerdist. She's the kind of person who'll do a thing like that for a friend. I went upstairs looking for Frankie. He wasn't in any of the upstairs rooms, so I went back downstairs. Finally, I found him in his sleeping bag under the dining room table. What are you doing here? I asked. I couldn't sleep, Frankie said. What do you want? I want to say I'm sorry, I told him. Sorry doesn't help, he said. I didn't answer. It was so easy, Hank, he said. There was a lot of frustration in his voice. I waited so long, and it was so easy. All you had to do was punch in 3 numbers and push the record button. Anybody can do this. So how do you think Hank feels with that? Because he didn't do it, and he couldn't do it, and he really couldn't help it. I can, I said. Just because it's easy for you doesn't mean it's easy for me. Can we not talk about this now, Frankie said. When can we talk about it, I asked. I don't know. Later. Sometime. Whenever. When? When we get back to the city, all right? Good night. I wanted to go on, but Frankie pulled his sleeping bag over his head in a way that left no doubt that he was done talking. Good night, Frankie, I said. He didn't answer. So I think all the kids are showing a very mature side of them. Hank still feels terrible, but at least Frankie did talk to him. So let's see what happens in Chapter 10 and see if it gets resolved. Chapter 10. I tried to go to sleep, but I couldn't, so I made a list. 8 things that are hard for me and easy for Frankie. Spelling, especially hard words like what you call the person who lives next door to you. You know, your next door neighbor, or is it neighbor, or neighbor? And he spelled it 3 different ways. I don't know, so don't ask me. Frankie is a dictionary with a mouth. Remembering words to songs. Frankie is a human karaoke machine. Learning how to play an instrument, except for the tambourine. And who wants that? Frankie plays the sax and knows over 10 songs by heart. Finding my backpack. Frankie's backpack is where it belongs, on his back. Remembering phone numbers. Frankie not only remembers phone numbers, he remembers area codes too. Reading a map. Frankie is a human compass. Means he can find his way all over. He's got a good sense of directions. Writing a letter. Frankie is the king of thank you notes. He's polite. And finally, reading the program guide on the television screen. Obviously, I am a total flop at that. So he's being really, really, really hard on himself. He put all the things that Frankie can do, inferring he can't do any of them, and didn't put any of the positives of the stuff that he can do, which we know he can. Like, he is wonderful with children. He is a good friend. He is kind. So we'll see next week what chapter 11 brings.